Good evening, and welcome. Settle yourself now, perhaps beneath a soft blanket, as the gentle quiet of the night begins to gather around you. You are safe here, enveloped in warmth and calm, and there is no need to stay awake if sleep calls to you. Indeed, that is our quiet purpose tonight, to drift away into a peaceful slumber, carried on the soft currents of an ancient story. Should your eyelids grow heavy, or your thoughts begin to blur, simply allow yourself to float away. There is nothing you need to remember, and nothing you need to do, save for resting. Tonight, we journey far back in time, not to the clatter of battles or the weighty pronouncements of kings, but to a quieter, more intimate corner of history. Imagine, if you will, the Middle Ages, a world far removed from our own, yet filled with the same human desires for connection, companionship, and the quiet joys of a shared life. We are going to explore what dating was actually like in this distant era. But before we delve into the details, let us first unveil the very concept itself, for it was not quite dating as we understand it today, but rather a gentle, communal unfolding, guided by different rhythms and expectations. Picture a world without the glow of electric lights, where the deepest darkness of night was softened only by the moon, the stars, and the flickering flame of a hearth. Imagine the smells carried on the breeze, not the exhaust of carriages, but the earthy scent of damp soil after a rain, the sweet perfume of wildflowers in a meadow, or the comforting aroma of wood smoke curling from distant chimneys. Listen for a moment, and perhaps you can almost hear the rustling of leaves in a nearby forest, the distant bleating of sheep, or the soft murmur of human voices carrying across a quiet village green as dusk settles. In this world, life moved at a pace dictated by the sun and the seasons. Days were filled with the simple, honest work of the land, the crafting of necessities, and the close-knit interactions of family and community. There was no rush, no hurried appointments, no fleeting digital encounters. Instead, relationships grew like sturdy oak trees, slowly, deliberately, rooted deeply in the soil of shared lives and mutual understanding. The fabric of society was woven tightly, and the threads of individual lives were intertwined with those of their neighbors, their kin, and their lord. To speak of courting in the Middle Ages is to speak of a process far more intricate and less individualistic than our modern notions of romance. It was not always about a sudden spark of passion, nor was it primarily about two individuals seeking only their own happiness. Instead, it was often a careful negotiation, a practical arrangement, and a slow, gentle blossoming of affection within the bounds of duty and societal expectation. Yet, within these structures, true human connection, deep respect, and even profound love could and did flourish. Consider the textures of this world, the rough wool of homespun garments, the cool, smooth surface of a wooden table worn by generations of hands, the sturdy resistance of a stone wall, or the comforting softness of a feather mattress filled with down. These were the tactile realities of life, grounding individuals in their surroundings, connecting them to the work of their hands and the natural world. In such a tangible world, human relationships, too, had a tangible quality. They were built on shared labor, communal celebrations, and the quiet, unwavering support of those around you. As we gently pull back the veil on this distant past, we invite you to shed any preconceptions and simply absorb the atmosphere. We are not here to judge or compare, but merely to observe, with a calm and open heart, how people found their way to companionship and partnership in an age so different from our own. It was a world where a shared glance across a village square, a helping hand offered during harvest, or a quiet conversation by the well could be the first, delicate threads in the tapestry of a shared future. So, let your mind drift now, as we prepare to gently explore these ancient ways. Imagine the quiet, persistent pulse of life in a medieval village, the soft glow of a tallow candle in a window, and the sense of enduring connection that bound people together. Allow these images to soothe your thoughts as the world outside your window grows still. There is comfort in this quiet contemplation, a sense of peace in understanding how human hearts have always sought connection across the vast expanse of time. Let your breathing deepen, your muscles relax, and surrender to the warmth of this ancient, calming narrative. As the gentle veil of night begins to draw itself across your mind, let us journey back to a time where the rhythms of life were deeply intertwined with the turning of the seasons and the simple necessities of each passing day. Imagine, for a moment, the world waking not to the insistent beep of a modern device, but to the soft, persistent crow of a distant rooster, or the faint, familiar lowing of cattle stirring in their pens. This was the natural alarm clock of the Middle Ages, and with it came the quiet commencement of daily routines, which, though seemingly mundane, were the very fabric upon which incidental encounters and nascent connections were woven. Picture the first slivers of dawn, painting the eastern sky in hues of soft grey and pale rose. Inside the humble dwellings, often shared by entire families, the air would still hold the chill of the night, mingled with the earthy scent of straw and the lingering warmth of the hearth fire, now banked low. A young woman might be among the first to rise, her bare feet finding the familiar cool of the packed earth floor. Her first task could be to rekindle the fire, coaxing sleepy embers back to life with a gentle breath and a few dry twigs, watching the delicate tendrils of smoke curl upwards, carrying the scent of wood smoke into the awakening air. Perhaps a young man from a neighboring dwelling, too, would be stirring, preparing for the day's heavy labor in the fields, the quiet scrape of his boots on the pathway a faint whisper in the morning calm. The village well, or the nearby stream, was a focal point for daily life, a necessity that brought everyone, young and old, together. Imagine the rhythmic creak of the well rope as buckets were lowered and drawn up, brimming with cool, clear water. Here, young women would gather, their conversation a soft murmur accompanying the splashes and gurgles. A young man, perhaps on his way to fetch water for his own family, might pause, offering a strong hand to help lift a heavy pail, or simply exchanging a quiet greeting. These weren't grand gestures, but simple acts of neighborliness, woven into the fabric of daily chores. Listen for a moment to the distant clinking of the buckets, the soft laughter, the shared breaths in the crisp morning air. Beyond the village threshold, the vast expanse of the fields beckoned. For the majority of people, life was tied to the land. Sowing seeds in spring, weeding under the summer sun, or harvesting the golden grain in autumn, these were communal efforts. Young men and women often toiled side by side, their bodies bending and straightening in unison with the rhythms of the earth. Imagine the feel of the warm sun on your skin, the smell of freshly turned soil, the rustle of wheat in a gentle breeze. Here, amidst the endless rows of crops, brief glances could be exchanged, a shared smile over a dropped tool, or a quiet word of encouragement during a particularly arduous task. The sheer proximity, the shared labor, created countless opportunities for observation and subtle interaction, often under the watchful, yet understanding, eyes of elders. It was in these shared moments of effort and camaraderie that reputations were quietly formed, and subtle attractions might begin to blossom. The village mill was another natural gathering place, its great stone wheels a constant, grinding presence in the landscape. The deep, resonant rumble of the millstone, the fine dust of flour settling on everything, the earthy aroma of grain, these sensory details were part of the regular journey. Families would bring their grain to be ground, and while waiting their turn, young people might find themselves in conversation, perhaps about the harvest, the weather, or a recent village event. Similarly, along the dusty paths that connected homes to fields, or the village common to the grazing pastures, young shepherds and shepherdesses, or those simply traveling for various errands, would encounter each other. These paths were the arteries of the medieval community, and every journey along them held the potential for a brief, incidental meeting. These weren't dates in any modern sense. There were no planned outings, no private conversations away from the watchful gaze of the community. Instead, life itself was the stage. Every shared task, every necessary journey, every communal gathering was an opportunity. A helping hand with a heavy load of firewood, a shared moment of rest beneath a shade tree, a brief exchange of pleasantries while tending to livestock. These were the quiet, unscripted moments where young hearts might first take notice of one another, observing character, strength, and kindness in the most authentic of settings. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in a gentle wash of deepening colors, these daily rhythms begin to quiet. The sounds of the fields fade, the creak of the well rope stills, and the soft glow of hearth fires begins to emerge from the windows of the village homes. These gentle, incidental encounters, woven into the very fabric of existence, settled into the memories of the day, perhaps to be quietly replayed as a quiet evening meal was shared. And so, as the day's echoes soften into the stillness of night, let your own rhythms slow, allowing the quiet hum of history to lull you into a state of deep and peaceful rest. As you settle deeper into the quiet comfort of this moment, imagine for a while a world where the paths of life were not carved by individual whim, but gently guided by the steady, experienced hands of family and village. In the medieval era, the notion of seeking a partner was rarely a solitary quest. It was a communal endeavor, deeply rooted in the very fabric of daily existence. The journey towards partnership was not a spontaneous adventure, but a carefully considered process, overseen by those who knew you best, and by the community that wrapped around you like a familiar, protective cloak. Your family, above all, stood as the primary architects of your future. Picture, if you will, the flickering light of a hearth in a simple, sturdy home. Perhaps you see the warm glow reflecting in the eyes of a mother, as she watches her daughter deftly mend a tear in a tunic, or a father observing his son's steady hand at the plough. These were not just idle observations, they were quiet assessments, building a picture of character, diligence, and suitability. Parents carried the weighty responsibility of securing their children's future, and in a world where survival often depended on alliances and resources, a good match was paramount. It was less about romantic love, as we understand it today, and more about a harmonious blending of families, land, and labor. The murmurs around the dinner table, the quiet conversations between a mother and father after the children had drifted off to sleep on their straw pallets, often revolved around these significant matters. Beyond the immediate family, the wider kinship network played its part. Grandparents, with their stories etched into their faces like ancient maps, offered wisdom gleaned from a lifetime of observation. Aunts and uncles, too, formed a silent council, their opinions carrying weight within the close-knit community. They knew the histories of neighboring families, understood the reputations of individuals, and could offer insights into character that a young person might overlook. A family's standing, its reputation for honesty, hard work, or piety, was a valuable asset, built over generations, and any potential match would be measured against this ancestral legacy. Imagine the quiet pride in a family name, a name that spoke of integrity and enduring connection within the village. And then, there was the village itself, the living, breathing entity whose collective gaze touched every aspect of life. In these smaller, tightly bound communities, there were few secrets. Every family knew every other family, their joys and sorrows, their strengths and their struggles. The shared daily rhythms meant that everyone was, in a gentle way, always observing. From the sun-drenched fields where villagers toiled side by side, to the shadowed lanes where children played, to the hushed sanctity of the church, life unfolded under a collective eye. The clatter of wooden buckets at the well, the distant lowing of cattle, the scent of wood smoke mingling with damp earth, these were the subtle sensory backdrops to a life lived openly, communally. It was in these shared spaces that the threads of potential connections were often first noticed. During harvest festivals, with their lively music and the aroma of roasted meats, or at the weekly market, bustling with the chatter of vendors and buyers, families could subtly assess potential partners for their children. Older women, with their keen eyes and well-honed intuition, might act as informal matchmakers, gently hinting at a suitable pairing or praising the virtues of a young man or woman to their respective families. There was a quiet understanding that the community's well-being was intertwined with the strength of its family units, and so, the entire village often had a vested interest in seeing good, stable matches made. It was a protective bubble, ensuring that those who partnered were known, vetted, and considered worthy. This deep involvement of family and village wasn't seen as an intrusion, but rather as a necessary framework for survival and stability. Marriage was, for many, a practical arrangement first and foremost, a way to secure labor for the farm, to inherit or consolidate land, or to forge valuable alliances. In a world where life was often harsh, where famine or illness could strike without warning, and the distant echoes of war were a constant possibility, the collective strength of family and community offered a vital safety net. A well-chosen partner, approved and supported by one's kin and neighbors, meant a stronger household, a more secure future, and a greater chance of weathering life's inevitable storms. So, when a young man or woman began to consider a partner, they did so not in isolation, but with the quiet chorus of their lineage and their community whispering in the background. It was a gentle pressure, perhaps, but also a profound comfort, the knowledge that their choices were not made in a vacuum, but were supported by generations of wisdom and a web of caring relationships. The journey towards partnership was a communal dance, a slow and deliberate unfolding, ensuring that each step was steady, each foundation firm. As this gentle understanding settles within you, feel the lingering warmth of that communal embrace. The sounds of a medieval village fade now, replaced by the soft hum of your own quiet space. The distant rustle of straw, the low murmur of ancestral voices, the faint glow of a hearth fire, all recede into the peaceful landscape of memory. Allow these echoes of enduring connection to lull you into an even deeper state of rest. Feel the comfort of belonging, the peace of a world where every life was woven into a larger, supportive tapestry. Let your breath deepen, your body soften, as you drift into a tranquil sleep, held by the quiet certainty of timeless human connection. As the sun began its slow journey across the medieval sky, painting the thatched roofs and stone walls in hues of soft gold, life in the village unfolded with a rhythm both ancient and comforting. It was within these daily, shared spaces that the quiet art of observation truly began, a subtle dance of glances and impressions, often unspoken, yet deeply understood. Imagine for a moment the gentle creak of a distant cart wheel, the soft murmur of voices carried on a light breeze, as you settle into the quiet understanding of how hearts might first begin to notice one another. One of the most profound gathering places, of course, was the village church or chapel. Listen for a moment to the distant peal of its bell, calling the community to prayer, a sound that has echoed through countless centuries. Here, on a Sunday morning, or during a special feast day, the entire village would converge. The air inside would be cool and still, carrying the faint, comforting scent of beeswax candles and old stone, perhaps a whisper of incense. Light, filtered through small, unglazed windows or, in grander structures, through simple stained glass, would spill across the rough-hewn benches and the hushed congregation. People would stand or kneel, wrapped in their woolen cloaks and linen garments, their faces illuminated softly. In this solemn quietude, surrounded by family, there was ample opportunity for subtle observation. A young man might catch a glimpse of a maiden across the nave, noticing the diligent way she held her prayer book, the neatness of her braided hair beneath her wimple, or the quiet grace with which she moved. A young woman, in turn, might observe a young man's attentiveness during the service, the strength of his shoulders as he knelt, or the respectful way he interacted with his elders. These were not bold stares, but fleeting, gentle impressions, often facilitated by a parent or an older relative, who might discreetly guide a gaze or offer a quiet comment later. Beyond the sanctity of the church, the market square was another vibrant canvas for observation. Picture the scene, the bustling energy, yet still tempered by the slow pace of the age. The sounds would be a gentle symphony, the lowing of a distant cow, the soft clatter of pottery, the murmuring of bartering voices, the occasional call of a vendor selling fresh bread or herbs. The smells would be wholesome and earthy, fresh-baked loaves, damp earth from recent rain, the faint tang of wood smoke from a nearby hearth, and the sweet scent of seasonal fruits or wildflowers. Here, amidst the stalls laden with woven cloths, tools, and produce, people moved with purpose, yet also with a natural curiosity. A young man might observe a maiden's skill in haggling, her kindness towards an animal, or the responsible way she carried her family's purchases. He might notice the sturdy weave of her homespun dress, the practical shoes on her feet, or the way her laughter, soft and genuine, carried above the market hum. Conversely, a young woman might observe a man's diligence as he bartered for goods, the respectful manner in which he spoke to his elders, or the strong, capable hands that steadied a cart. These were moments of everyday life, unfolding publicly, offering glimpses into character and capability without the need for formal introduction. Even the simple act of drawing water at the village well or river offered its own quiet space for observation. Imagine the gentle splash of water as a wooden bucket is lowered, the soft scrape of a clay pitcher being filled. The air here might be cooler, fresher, carrying the scent of damp earth and perhaps the sweet perfume of nearby blossoming bushes. Women often gathered here, their soft conversations mingling with the sounds of nature. A young man passing by on his way to the fields, or perhaps tending to livestock, might pause, offering a polite nod. He might notice the quiet strength with which a young woman managed her heavy water bucket, the neatness of her simple attire even in the midst of daily chores, or the gentle way she interacted with a younger sibling accompanying her. These routine encounters, though brief, built up a tapestry of impressions over time. And then there were the festivals and seasonal celebrations, May Day, harvest feasts, or local saints' days. These were occasions of joyful release, where the village green would come alive with music from simple pipes and drums, the warmth of communal fires, and the laughter of games and dancing. The smells of roasting meat and brewing ale would mingle with the fresh air, and the light of bonfires would cast flickering shadows against the night sky. In these more relaxed settings, young people, often dressed in their finest, albeit still simple, garments, had a chance to interact more freely, albeit always under the watchful eyes of their families and the wider community. A graceful step in a communal dance, a kind word shared, a moment of shared laughter over a simple game, these were the threads that wove the fabric of early connection, all born from gentle observation within the familiar, comforting confines of village life. As the day begins to fade, and the last echoes of laughter and daily toil soften into the evening quiet, these gentle observations would linger in the minds of those who made them. The image of a kind smile, the memory of a steady hand, the impression of quiet diligence, these were the foundations upon which the medieval heart began to consider its path. Allow these gentle scenes to settle softly within your own mind, as the sounds of the day grow dim, and a deep, peaceful stillness invites you to rest. Imagine, for a moment, the quiet hum of a medieval village, bathed in the soft, diffused light of a late afternoon. The air carries the scent of wood smoke from distant hearths, damp earth after a recent shower, and perhaps the faint, sweet perfume of wildflowers blooming near the hedgerows. It is within this gentle, unassuming world that the subtle art of medieval courtship truly unfolded, a dance of observation and quiet gesture, far removed from the boisterous declarations we might envision today. There were no grand pronouncements, no elaborate dates as we understand them. Instead, potential partners watched and learned, often without a word being spoken directly about their intentions. A young man, perhaps, might find himself drawn to a maiden he observed daily at the village well. He would notice the steady rhythm of her movements as she lowered and raised the bucket, the way her hair caught the sunlight, the kindness in her eyes as she shared a moment with a passing child. His gaze would be gentle, lingering only a moment longer than strictly necessary, a silent acknowledgement across the sun-dappled square. Listen for the gentle clink of the well chain, the soft splash of water, the distant murmur of voices, all creating a backdrop for these quiet observations. And she, in turn, might observe him. Perhaps at the communal threshing, where his strong back and diligent work spoke volumes about his character and ability to provide. Or during a Sunday gathering after Mass, where his respectful demeanor and thoughtful contributions to conversation might catch her attention. The rustle of straw underfoot, the rhythmic thump of flails, the low drone of prayers echoing from the small stone church, these were the sounds that accompanied the gradual unfurling of quiet interest. Her glance, too, would be fleeting, a quick survey that assessed not just his appearance, but his industriousness, his piety, his standing within the community. The gestures of courtship were equally understated, almost woven into the fabric of daily life. A young man might offer to help carry a heavy basket from the market, his fingers brushing hers for just a heartbeat longer than needed. He might carve a small, simple wooden bird, its wings smooth and comforting under the thumb, leaving it discreetly where it would be found. Or he might simply ensure that her path was clear, that a gate was held open, a small courtesy that spoke volumes of his consideration. Imagine the texture of that smooth wood, the coolness of a hand offered in help, the warmth of a passing smile. For a young woman, her subtle signals might involve a particular attention to her appearance on days she knew he would be present, a carefully braided ribbon in her hair, a cleaner, brighter apron, a sprig of fragrant rosemary tucked into her bodice. She might offer a small, freshly baked oatcake or a handful of ripe berries, not as a direct gift of affection, but as a gesture of neighborly kindness that carried a hidden layer of meaning. The sweet, earthy smell of the berries, the comforting warmth of the oatcake, the soft whisper of her dress as she moved, these details would convey her gentle interest. Conversation, when it occurred, was often indirect, facilitated by the tight-knit nature of medieval society. A trusted friend might subtly inquire about the other's family, their health, their work, relaying tidbits of information that slowly built a picture of suitability. Parents and elders, ever watchful, were often the first to notice these subtle inclinations, their wisdom guiding the earliest, most tentative steps towards a potential match. It was a courtship conducted with the full knowledge and implicit approval of the community, where reputation and good standing were paramount. These were not hurried affairs. The understanding between two people often developed over weeks, even months, through shared moments of quiet observation, small acts of consideration, and gentle, unspoken acknowledgments. The slow turning of the seasons, the gradual ripening of the harvest, the steady progression of daily tasks, all mirrored the deliberate pace of these emerging connections. Listen for the gentle evening breeze rustling through the leaves, carrying the soft, reassuring sound of distant sheep bells, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of soft orange and twilight blue. As the daylight fades and the sounds of the village begin to settle into the quiet hum of evening, imagine these quiet, unfolding stories. The warmth of a hearth fire now casts dancing shadows on cottage walls, and the distant call of an owl signals the deepening night. These subtle threads, carefully woven into the rich tapestry of medieval life, reveal how connections were gently forged, not with grand gestures, but with sincere observation and quiet consideration, laying the foundation for a shared future. Allow yourself to drift now, carried by these peaceful images, towards a restful, comforting sleep. As the gentle currents of observation and subtle signals flowed, eventually, the path of medieval courting would invariably lead to a more grounded, yet equally significant, landscape. Beyond the quiet glances and shared smiles, beyond the unspoken hopes and delicate dreams, lay the sturdy foundations upon which a new household would be built. This was the realm of practicalities, of agreements carefully considered, and of futures thoughtfully charted. It was a time when the gentle thrum of the heart met the steady rhythm of necessity, ensuring the stability and prosperity that every new family yearned for. Imagine, if you will, the quiet dignity of a medieval hall or a cozy, firelit room, where the air hummed not with the nervous energy of young lovers, but with the steady, measured tones of family heads. Perhaps the scent of wood smoke mingled with the fainter, sweet notes of dried herbs from the rafters, as serious discussions unfolded around a sturdy oak table. The flickering light of an oil lamp or a beeswax candle might cast dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls, illuminating faces etched with concern for their kin's well-being. Here, the threads of two lives, now intertwined with hopeful possibility, would be carefully woven into the broader tapestry of family and community. A pivotal element in this weaving was what was known as the dowry. Listen for a moment to the soft echoes of history. The dowry was a collection of assets, be it land, livestock, household goods, tools, or even coin, that the bride's family would bring to the marriage. It wasn't simply a gift, it was an investment, a vital contribution to the new household, designed to provide for the bride within her marriage and to enhance the couple's overall standing and security. For a young woman from a prosperous farming family, this might mean a prized cow, a bolt of fine wool, a sturdy chest filled with linens, or a small parcel of land. For those of higher standing, the dowry could encompass vast estates, significant sums of money, or even influential connections. It spoke volumes about a family's status and their commitment to their daughter's future. Conversely, in a complementary arrangement, often negotiated at the very same time, the groom or his family would typically settle a dower upon the prospective bride. This was a portion of the husband's property or income that would be set aside specifically for her use, should she outlive him. It was her safeguard, her assurance of support and dignity as a widow, preventing her from becoming a burden upon her own family or the community. Think of it as a quiet promise of security, a warm cloak against the uncertainties of life, ensuring that even in loss, she would retain a measure of independence and comfort. Sometimes, in a sweet custom, a morning gift, a morgengabe, was given the morning after the wedding, a personal token of affection and the official transfer of this agreed-upon dower. These arrangements, the dowry and the dower, were not merely casual conversations. They were often formalized through intricate agreements, sometimes verbal, sealed by handshakes and witnesses in simpler communities, but frequently put down on parchment for families of greater means. Imagine the gentle scratch of a quill on vellum, the careful forming of letters by a scribe, meticulously detailing every cow, every field, every promise. These contracts were binding, respected within the community, and often witnessed by respected elders, the local priest, or even feudal lords. They covered not just the immediate exchange of assets, but also provisions for future children, inheritance rights, and sometimes even the specific duties and responsibilities within the new household. It was a testament to the fact that marriage, in the Middle Ages, was as much an alliance between families as it was a union of individuals, a strategic weaving together of resources, labor, and social standing. The gravity of these negotiations was profound. A well-constructed agreement could secure generations, offering a haven of stability in a world often fraught with uncertainty. A poor one, or one that fell through, could spell hardship. Yet, amidst the seriousness, there was a quiet understanding of purpose, a shared desire for a prosperous future. The warmth of the hearth fire, the steady presence of trusted kin, the shared cup of ale or wine, these elements created an atmosphere of collective endeavor, binding families together in a common cause. As the quiet evening descends, let these images of thoughtful planning and steady agreements gently settle your mind. The rustle of parchment, the murmur of voices, the soft glow of a candle against the sturdy wood of a table, all speak of a world where futures were carefully constructed, brick by practical brick, for the comfort and continuity of generations. Feel the stillness of the night wrapping around you, a sense of security and enduring connection, much like the agreements that once laid the groundwork for countless medieval lives. Let the gentle weight of history lull you, as you drift into a deep and peaceful rest, cradled by the echoes of those long-ago promises. As the dance of subtle gestures and careful observations reached its natural pause, a new chapter would quietly unfurl, one imbued with the warmth of intention and the comforting weight of commitment. The whispers of potential partnership, once confined to the hearthside discussions and the thoughtful counsel of elders, now began to coalesce into something more tangible, more certain. This was the moment when the unspoken became spoken, when the hopeful glances transformed into promises made, paving the steady path to betrothal. Imagine, if you will, the soft glow of a tallow candle in a modest dwelling, casting long, dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. The air might be thick with the scent of wood smoke, perhaps a hint of baking bread, or the familiar aroma of dried herbs hanging from the rafters. Two families, perhaps seated on sturdy benches around a scrubbed wooden table, would gather. The decision had been reached, the dowry discussed, the terms of the union laid out with care and practicality. It was not a moment of sudden, dramatic declaration, but rather a gentle affirmation, a quiet understanding solidified between heads of households. Listen for a moment to the hushed voices, the measured tones of agreement. The fathers, perhaps, would clasp hands, a symbol of their bond, of the trust they were placing in one another for the future happiness and prosperity of their children. There might be a shared cup of ale or cider, passed around the small circle, each sip a seal upon the understanding. The young man and woman, who had been the subject of these careful deliberations, would be present, perhaps sitting a little apart, feeling the quiet weight of the moment. Their hearts might beat a little faster, not from the anxiety of the unknown, but from the gentle certainty of a future now clearly drawn. Betrothal, in those times, was a deeply significant step, often as binding as marriage itself in the eyes of the community and the church. It was not merely a romantic notion, but a legal and social contract, offering stability in a world that often presented its own challenges. Think of the comfort in knowing one's place, in understanding the contours of the life that lay ahead. It was a bulwark against the uncertainties of a harsh winter or the unpredictable turns of fortune, a shared strength forged between families. Sometimes, a small token would be exchanged, a tangible symbol of the promise. It might be a simple ring, not necessarily adorned with a glittering gem, but perhaps a plain band of silver or iron, or even a finely crafted piece of woven work. This was not a public spectacle, but an intimate gesture, a quiet acceptance of the bond that was forming. Imagine the feeling of that cool metal, or the soft texture of the woven band, against the skin, a constant, gentle reminder of the commitment now made. The touch of it would carry the warmth of shared expectation, the steady beat of two lives beginning to entwine. Once the betrothal was settled, the news would spread gently through the village or manor. Not with a fanfare, but with the quiet murmur of shared life. Neighbors would offer their nods of approval, their well wishes. The young couple would be seen in a new light, their path now publicly acknowledged and supported. This period of betrothal could last for months, or even years, allowing time for crops to be harvested, for a small home to be prepared, or for the young woman to reach an age deemed appropriate for marriage. It was a time of gentle anticipation, a period for the future bride and groom to grow accustomed to their impending union, to learn to trust and rely upon one another within the secure embrace of their families and community. Through it all, the feelings of duty, expectation, and perhaps a burgeoning affection would mingle. The quiet acceptance of one's destiny was often intertwined with a hopeful looking forward to companionship, to the shared warmth of a hearth, to the creation of a new family unit. The world outside might hold its perils, the distant rumblings of conflict, the ever-present threat of scarcity, but within the circle of this agreement, there was a profound sense of security, a haven built on the foundation of promises made and trust given. Now, as the quiet echoes of these ancient agreements fade into the stillness of the night, let the images of these gentle commitments settle around you. Feel the warmth of the hearth, the soft glow of the candle, the comforting weight of a promise upheld. Let these thoughts of enduring connection, of lives gently aligning, guide you towards a deeper sense of peace. The day's tasks are complete, and the quiet landscape of the past has offered its soft narrative. Allow yourself to drift, untroubled, into the tranquil depths of a restful sleep, cradled by the stillness. Now, with the promises made and the path to partnership clearly laid, we turn our gaze inward, to the delicate balance that began to unfold within each heart. For medieval life, though often depicted as solely driven by pragmatism, was not devoid of feeling, nor of the quiet landscapes where affection could blossom alongside duty. The union, once a matter of agreement and lineage, would slowly, gently, become a shared existence, woven thread by thread into the fabric of daily life. Imagine, for a moment, the early days of a new household. Perhaps a young couple, stepping into their roles, feeling the weight of expectation and the fresh promise of a future. Duty was, undeniably, the sturdy loom upon which their life was spun. The duty to manage the household, to tend the fields or the workshop, to raise children, to contribute to the wider village or estate. These were not light responsibilities, and they demanded cooperation, resilience, and a deep, unspoken trust. Yet, within this framework of shared purpose, the seeds of affection were often sown, watered by small kindnesses and the steady rhythm of companionship. Listen for the subtle sounds of this evolving connection, the rustle of straw as hands work together, perhaps preparing a meal, or spinning wool by the hearth. The quiet murmur of voices discussing the day's tasks, the state of the harvest, or the needs of their small flock. It was in these shared moments of labor and quiet domesticity that understanding deepened. A glance exchanged over a steaming pot, a shared smile as a child took its first wobbly steps, the comfortable silence that settled between two people who knew each other's habits and hopes. This was not the tempestuous passion of troubadour songs, perhaps, but a warmer, more enduring ember that glowed steadily. Consider the textures and warmth within their home. The rough, honest feel of homespun cloth, perhaps woven by her own hands, offering comfort against the chill of a winter evening. The solid, smooth wood of a well-worn table, bearing the marks of countless shared meals. The radiant heat from the hearth, a focal point of their dwelling, drawing them together as dusk deepened. In the glow of the flickering firelight, stories were told, prayers were whispered, and the quiet intimacy of two lives intertwined grew stronger. It was a warmth that extended beyond the physical, permeating the very air of their shared space, building a sense of belonging and mutual reliance. The heart's quiet landscape in the Middle Ages was not always a place of grand romantic gestures, but rather one of steady cultivation. Affection might manifest as a partner ensuring the other had the warmest spot by the fire, or bringing a carefully chosen wild berry from the woods. It was in the shared burden of a difficult winter, the quiet pride in a successful harvest, the comfort of knowing someone else understood the particular challenges of their life. There was a profound beauty in this practical love, a deep current of care that ran beneath the surface of daily duties, sustaining them through hardship and celebrating their small triumphs. Over years, this tapestry of duty and affection grew richer, more intricate. The young couple would age, their hands perhaps more calloused, their faces etched with the lines of experience, but their bond, forged in the crucible of shared life, would only strengthen. They would have witnessed each other's strengths and weaknesses, offered comfort in sorrow and celebrated in joy. They would have learned the quiet language of touch, a reassuring hand on an arm, a gentle pat on the shoulder, gestures that spoke volumes without a single word. This was the true enduring connection, built not on fleeting infatuation, but on the bedrock of shared history and unwavering commitment. Even in times of hardship, when crops failed or illness swept through the village, this connection became their anchor. The shared vulnerability, the mutual support in facing life's inevitable difficulties, deepened their appreciation for one another. It was a bond that acknowledged the inherent fragility of existence but found strength in unity. The quiet courage of facing an uncertain world together, drawing solace from each other's presence, was a testament to the profound, if understated, affection that could flourish within the medieval heart. As the evening draws to a close, and the last embers in our imaginary hearth begin to fade, let your own mind drift to the quiet beauty of these enduring connections. The soft glow of affection nurtured through shared life, the steady pulse of duty fulfilled with a loving heart. Feel the warmth of a bygone era, where the simple acts of living together forged bonds of deep and lasting care. Allow these gentle echoes of human connection to soothe your thoughts, settling your mind into a tranquil stillness. May you find your own quiet landscape of peace as you drift now, softly, into a restful sleep. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of amber and soft rose, a different kind of quiet begins to settle over the medieval landscape. The vibrant symphony of the day, filled with the clatter of tools, the distant calls of vendors, the cheerful chatter of children, and the lowing of cattle, gradually softens, like a melody played ever more gently. Feel the very air begin to cool, carrying with it a fresh, damp scent of evening dew forming on the fields and the rich, earthy aroma of the soil after a day's warmth. Imagine the last rays of sunlight stretching long shadows across the uneven cobblestones of the village path, touching the thatched roofs with a fleeting golden light before surrendering to the deepening twilight. The smoke from hearths, which had been a steady presence throughout the day, now seems to thicken, curling lazily into the still air, carrying the comforting scent of wood smoke, perhaps oak or birch, mingling with the promise of a warm meal. Listen closely, and you might hear the distant bleating of sheep being herded into their folds for the night, or the soft, reassuring call of a shepherd to his dog. Doors begin to creak shut, one by one, sealing away the day's bustling energy, replacing it with the intimate hush of home. Step inside, if you will, into the warmth of a simple dwelling, where the hearth fire is now the dominant source of light and comfort. The flames dance and flicker, casting moving shadows on the whitewashed walls and the rough-hewn timbers of the ceiling. The air within is thick with the lingering aroma of the evening meal, perhaps a hearty stew, slow-cooked with root vegetables and herbs, or the faint, sweet scent of freshly baked bread. You can almost feel the residual warmth radiating from the stone or clay of the hearth, a comforting presence against the gathering chill outside. The sounds here are different from the village outside. Perhaps the gentle murmur of voices, softened by the day's weariness, or the quiet rustle of cloth as someone prepares for rest. A single beeswax candle, precious and glowing, might sit on a small wooden table, its golden light adding a soft, honeyed glow to the fire's ruddy embrace. Feel the smooth, cool surface of a well-worn wooden bench beneath your hand, or the reassuring weight of a woolen blanket, perhaps spun and woven by the hands of the very people who now settle down for the night. Outside, the sounds of the night begin to assert themselves. The hoot of an owl, clear and resonant from the dark woods that fringe the village. The persistent, rhythmic chorus of crickets from the tall grass, a lullaby that has soothed generations to sleep. A distant dog might bark once or twice, a brief challenge to the unseen world, before silence reclaims its gentle reign. The moon, if it is full, might begin to cast its silvery light through a small, unglazed window opening, painting the floor with pale, ethereal patterns that shift with the passing clouds. Within the protective embrace of the dwelling, a sense of profound solitude begins to descend. The communal bonds of the day, the shared laughter and labor, gently recede, making way for the private landscape of thought and rest. Perhaps a young woman, her hands tired from spinning flax, might sit by the dying embers, her mind wandering back to a fleeting glance exchanged with a hopeful suitor earlier in the day, or a quiet conversation about the planting of next year's crops. A man, his muscles aching from the fields, might simply listen to the quiet breathing of his family, feeling the deep, unspoken connection that binds them together. The dangers of the medieval night, the wild animals that roam the forests, the occasional lone traveler, or the simple, overwhelming darkness, remain safely outside, a distant hum rather than a present threat. Here, within these sturdy walls, beneath the familiar roof, there is a profound sense of peace and security. The straw mattress, perhaps a bit lumpy but surprisingly comfortable, awaits. The thick woolen blankets, smelling faintly of clean sheep and wood smoke, offer warmth and a soft, enveloping embrace. As you prepare to settle into your own rest, imagine drawing that woolen blanket up around you, feeling its comforting weight. The last embers in the hearth glow a deep orange, casting a final, sleepy warmth before fading to ash. The beeswax candle has been snuffed, leaving only the moonlight and the deep, rich darkness. The sounds from outside grow fainter, dissolving into the background hum of the sleeping world. All that remains is the quiet rhythm of your own breath, the gentle settling of your body, and the deep, abiding peace of a world drifting into slumber. Let the echoes of those medieval evenings, with their simple comforts and profound stillness, carry you now, gently and surely, into your own restful night. Feel yourself softening, relaxing, letting go. The day is done, the world sleeps, and you are safe, warm, and utterly at peace. The last whispers of the evening, carried on the gentle currents of the cooling air, now settle into a profound quiet. The hearth, which glowed so brightly with the day's warmth and the evening's stories, now holds only the deepest, most tranquil embers. Watch them for a moment, those soft, orange hearts, pulsing gently, silently in the dimness. They are like the quiet warmth that settles within us after a day of gentle rhythms and peaceful connection, a warmth that doesn't demand attention but simply is star. Beyond the thick, sturdy walls of your imagined dwelling, the medieval night has fully arrived. The moon, perhaps a sliver, perhaps a full, luminous orb, casts a silver sheen over fields now sleeping under a blanket of dew. Listen for the faint, distant call of an owl, a soft hoot that drifts through the stillness, a natural lullaby from the ancient world. Or perhaps you hear the subtle rustle of leaves as a gentle breeze sighs through the branches of an old oak, a sound as old as time itself, soothing and steady. The air carries the clean, cool scent of damp earth and the lingering, comforting aroma of wood smoke from distant hearths, weaving a tapestry of natural scents that speak of home and security. As the world outside settles into its slumber, allow your mind to drift back through the gentle images we've shared tonight. Remember the quiet paths winding through the village, where a simple nod or a shared smile could spark the first flicker of interest. Recall the bustling, yet orderly, market square, where incidental encounters blossomed amidst the calls of vendors and the earthy scent of fresh bread and grains. These were not grand, dramatic scenes, but rather the quiet, everyday moments, imbued with their own profound significance. The medieval heart found its way not through hurried pursuits, but through patient observation, through the shared rhythms of community life. Imagine again the soft glow of a tallow candle, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn beams of a humble cottage. Picture the gentle hands of a mother, perhaps, guiding her child in a simple craft, while nearby, a young man might pause, ostensibly to speak with the father, but truly to steal a shy glance at the daughter. Or perhaps you see the villagers gathered by the well, the smooth, cool stone worn by countless hands, the water drawn up in a wooden bucket, a moment for quiet conversation and the exchange of knowing looks. These were the gentle gathering places, where connections were forged, not with words alone, but with presence, with shared silences, and with the unspoken language of the heart. Feel the texture of rough wool against your skin, or the smooth, cool surface of a ceramic bowl warmed by the last of the evening's stew. Taste the simple, honest flavors of a meal shared around a humble table. These are the textures and tastes of a life lived close to the earth, a life where every sensory detail was heightened by its very simplicity. In such a world, a shared meal, a moment of warmth by the fire, or a walk together on a quiet path took on a deeper resonance, becoming anchors of human connection. The subtle art of medieval courtship was rarely about grand declarations. It was in the lingering glance, the carefully chosen word, the quiet observation of character and kindness. It was in the offering of a small, hand-carved token, perhaps, or a song sung by the hearth. It was a dance of polite restraint and quiet understanding, guided by the wisdom of elders and the common sense of the community. Even the practicalities of partnership, the dowries, the agreements, were not cold calculations, but rather the careful laying of foundations for a secure future, ensuring stability and peace for the families involved. They were acts of foresight, ensuring the enduring connection would be well rooted in the fertile ground of mutual prosperity. And then came the promises made, the path to betrothal, a public acknowledgement of a future shared. It was a moment of quiet solemnity, often followed by gentle celebration. Affection, in this world, was not always a sudden, fiery passion, but often a steady, growing warmth, nurtured by duty, respect, and shared purpose. It was the heart's quiet landscape, unfolding slowly, revealing its depths over time, finding profound beauty in companionship and mutual support. The love that blossomed was often a quiet, steady flame, built on shared tasks and common dreams, a love that endured through the changing seasons of life. Now, as the last embers of the fire dim to a soft, barely visible glow, and the sounds of the night settle into a deep, pervasive quiet, allow yourself to release any lingering thoughts. The echoes of these enduring connections, stretching back through time, remind us of the fundamental human need for companionship, for belonging, for shared warmth against the vastness of the world. The ways of the past may seem distant, but the heart's desire for connection remains a constant, a gentle light that guides us through the ages. You are safe. You are warm. The world outside is calm and still. The air is soft. Your breathing slows. Let the deep quiet embrace you now. The peace of the night is here. Sleep now. Sleep now. Sleep now.